Most people who get nasolabial fold filler are back within 14 months. Not because the procedure failed, because the fold came back. That number used to confuse me too. You fill a volume deficit, you add structure, you smooth the line, and then gravity, or whatever you want to call it, reasserts itself. The line is back, sometimes deeper than before. And the explanation the industry offers is that fillers are temporary by design, that hyaluronic acid breaks down, that maintenance is just part of the process. And technically, all of that is true. What that explanation doesn't tell you is why the fold deepened in the first place. Not what made the skin look that way, what made the tissue beneath it behave that way. And until you know that, you can fill the fold as many times as you want, and you will keep filling it, 14 months at a time. This is the thing I want to spend the next few minutes with you on. Not the fold itself, what's underneath the fold. Because when you understand what's actually driving that deepening, the mechanical input, not the surface output, 45 seconds in the morning starts to make sense in a way that no topical product and no injection can fully replace. Your pelvis is involved. That's where we're going to start. There's a statistic I keep returning to when I think about how sedentary modern life has become. The average adult who works a desk job spends somewhere between 9 and 11 hours a day in a seated or semi-reclined position. 9 to 11 hours. If you want to feel that number rather than just read it, think about what happens to a garden hose when you leave it kinked in the same position for a decade. The material deforms. The kink becomes the resting state. Your soft tissue is considerably more adaptive than garden hose rubber. That adaptability is mostly an advantage, but it has a cost. What your body rehearses, it holds. And what most of us rehearse for 9 to 11 hours a day is a specific pelvic position, the sit. When you sit, and I mean sit the way most of us actually sit, not the corrected posture we briefly adopt when we think about it, your pelvis tips forward and down. The front of the pelvis drops, the back rises. This is called anterior pelvic tilt, and it is one of the most common postural adaptations in adults who spend significant time seated. It's not a flaw exactly. It's a very reasonable mechanical response to a very unreasonable input. Your body is doing what it needs to do to remain upright given the position you keep putting it in. The thing is, nothing in your body is isolated. That's the first thing systems thinking teaches you about anatomy. There are no local problems. There are only local readouts of systemic inputs. The pelvis does not tilt in isolation. When it tips forward, something has to change above it to keep you upright, to keep your center of mass over your base of support. Your lower back curves, your upper back rounds, your head shifts forward. You've seen this shape. You've probably been in it today. The question systems thinking asks is, what does that shape transmit? Where does the information from that pelvic position go? It doesn't stay at the pelvis. It doesn't stay at the spine. It travels. If you were explaining a kinetic chain to someone at a dinner party, someone who hasn't thought about biomechanics but is genuinely curious, you'd probably reach for something like this. Imagine a team of rowers in a racing shell. Every rower's stroke affects every other rower's position. The person in the stern can't compensate for a problem in the bow without creating a new problem somewhere in the middle. The shell as a whole expresses what each individual position generates. Your fascia works something like that. It's a continuous system. A change in one rower's position, one segment's resting posture, redistributes load across the whole structure. Now, the specific chain we're talking about, the one that matters for the nasolabial fold, is longer than most people expect. And understanding it is what makes the next part make sense. The anterior pelvic tilt tightens the hip flexors. The iliopsoas, a long muscle group that runs from the inner surface of your lumbar vertebrae through the pelvis and attaches to the top of your femur, shortens when the pelvis tips forward and stays shortened when that position is maintained for hours. It is not in pain. It is simply short. Chronically, adaptively short. And that shortness pulls on the lumbar spine. The thoracolumbar fascia, which is a dense connected tissue layer that spans the lower and mid back, transmits that lumbar loading upward into the thoracic spine. When the lower back is chronically extended and the thoracic spine is chronically flexed, which is the coupled movement you get with anterior pelvic tilt, the thoracolumbar fascia is under asymmetric tension. It braces, it thickens. The thoracic spine rounds more, the shoulders round more, forward head position follows. When the thoracic spine rounds, the cervical spine extends to compensate, to keep the eyes level, to keep you able to see what's in front of you. The head shifts forward of the shoulders. This is not a rare clinical finding. This is what most adults in contemporary life look like from the side. Here's where the chain becomes relevant to the face. The anterior cervical fascia, the tissue along the front of your neck, is under load when the head sits forward of the shoulders. It is being stretched and pulled anteriorly. The platysma, which is a broad, thin sheet of muscle that covers the front and sides of the neck and extends upward into the lower face, is continuous with that fascial environment. It connects into the superficial muscular aponeurotic system of the face, the SMAS, which underlies the cheeks, the nasolabial region, and the lower face. When the anterior cervical fascia is under chronic anterior tension from forward head position, the platysma is pulled inferiorly. And when the platysma is pulled inferiorly, it exerts a sustained, low-grade downward force on the facial soft tissue it is connected to. That force is not dramatic on any given day. Across years, it is significant. The nasolabial fold deepens, not primarily because the skin loses elasticity, though it does. Not primarily because volume is lost beneath it, though that happens too. But because there is a postural input, measurable, addressable, mechanical, pulling the tissue of the midface inferiorly, day after day, through a chain that started at the pelvis. The fold is the readout. The pelvis is the input. Filler addresses the readout. The fold is temporarily filled. The input is unchanged. The chain continues operating. And 14 months later, the fold is back. Now take that same structural understanding and translate it into population numbers, because the scale of this matters. Forward head posture has been documented in multiple large observational studies of desk-working adults. Conservative estimates place the prevalence in that population somewhere above 60%. Not occasional forward head position, habitual, resting forward head position. If you imagine 100 people sitting at computers right now, and you look at them from the side, 60 or more of them have their ears measurably in front of their shoulders. Translate that to force. For every inch the head sits forward of its neutral position over the cervical spine, the effective load on the cervical structures increases by roughly 10 pounds. Not because the head gets heavier, because the lever arm changes. A head that weighs 12 pounds in neutral position exerts 22 pounds of effective load at 1 inch forward, 32 pounds at 2 inches. Most adults with habitual forward head posture are sitting at 2 to 3 inches of anterior displacement. That is 30 to 42 pounds of sustained load on the structures of the anterior neck, including the platysma and the fascial connections into the face. 30 to 42 pounds for 9 to 11 hours every day. Your filler didn't stand a chance. This is the point where the valley gets as low as it's going to get. Because if you spent money on filler, or if you've been considering it, or if you've watched the fold deepen in the mirror and felt confused about why the creams and the rollers and the gua sha aren't holding, this number explains it. Not to make you feel bad, to make the next part feel worth doing. Because the chain is reversible, not fully and not immediately, but meaningfully and measurably with a specific mechanical input that costs nothing and takes 45 seconds. Here's the protocol. I want to be exact about this because precision is the difference between something that works and something that sort of works. Start on the floor. Specifically, lie on your back on a firm, flat surface, not a mattress. The firmness matters because the feedback from a soft surface doesn't tell your nervous system what you need it to know. The floor is ideal. Bend your knees so your feet are flat on the floor, hip width apart. This is not a stretch yet. This is just the starting position. Find your lower back. In most adults with anterior pelvic tilt, the lower back will be arched away from the floor. You can slide a hand underneath the lumbar curve and feel the gap. That gap is the anterior tilt. The pelvis is tipped forward and the lumbar spine has followed it. Now, before you do anything else, take a full breath in. Expand the rib cage laterally, sideways, not just forward. As you exhale, contract the deep abdominal muscles gently. Not a crunch, not a brace, a gentle drawing in. And simultaneously, tuck the pelvis. The lower back presses down toward the floor. The gap closes or narrows significantly. The pelvis is moving into posterior tilt. Hold that position for the duration of 3 full slow breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow. Keep the pelvis pressed down. Keep the abdominal connection gentle and continuous. That is 1 repetition. You're going to do 6. 6 repetitions at 5 seconds each with 3 full breaths per repetition. 45 seconds of active postural reset per session. The breath cue is not decorative. Exhalation activates the deep stabilizers, the transversus abdominis, the pelvic floor, more effectively than a deliberate contraction command. You are using the respiratory system to recruit the postural system. This is why the breath is part of the protocol and not optional. When to do it. The morning anchor matters most. Your nervous system's default postural tone is most plastic in the first 20 minutes after waking, before the day's habitual patterns reassert themselves. Do this before you check your phone. The floor is already there. What you will notice in the first week. The exercise will feel unfamiliar. The lumbar curve may resist the floor contact. That resistance is information. It tells you how much resting anterior tilt you've been carrying. By week 3, the floor contact will be more complete with less effort. The position will feel less forced. By week 6, some people notice a change in the resting position of their head and neck, a slight reduction in how far forward the head sits. Some notice it in photographs. Some notice it in the mirror. The fold does not disappear. The fold responds. It softens at the edges where the platysmal pull has decreased. It deepens less after a day of sitting. The skin above it sits differently because the tissue beneath it is under different mechanical conditions. This is not a miracle claim. It is a mechanical claim. You change the input. The system responds to the input. One more thing before I give you permission to start. The conversation around facial aging often assumes that the interventions that work are the ones with clinical gatekeepers, the ones that require a referral, a consultation, an appointment, a needle. And some of them do work. I'm not arguing against every injection that has ever been placed. But the assumption that the mechanical inputs to facial aging are outside your reach without professional involvement, that assumption is simply incorrect. The pelvis tilt protocol requires no referral, no prescription, no specialist appointment, no recovery time. It requires a firm floor and 45 seconds. You have the floor. You do not need permission from anyone to lie on it. But if you feel like you need to hear it from someone who has spent years looking at how posture and facial structure interact, you have it. Start today. The protocol is mechanical, not medical. It is safe for the overwhelming majority of adults, and it is free. The fold that was deepening while you sat through the years of mornings you didn't know to do this, that fold is not a verdict. It is a readout of a mechanical state that changes when you change the input. And the input starts on the floor.